Mabuhay, or in Kapampangan, luwid kayo, and in Bisaya, mabuhi. Marhay na aga o marhay na hapon o marhay na banggi sa indong gabos. Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kirby Araullo, your friendly Pinoy Historian and Culture Bearer. And as many of you requested, in today's video, I'll be doing a reaction and a breakdown of FELIP's new music video, Bulan. But before we begin, here are some few reminders. In this channel, I make videos about our people's colorful history, diverse cultures, mythologies, and everything in between. So if you want to support my channel and my research, please consider being my patron on Patreon or a member of my YouTube channel. Or you can also get copies of any of my books, coloring books, and ebooks. In fact, to expand your knowledge about today's topic, check out my coloring book about the many moon-eating dragons and moon deities in the diverse mythologies of what is now the Philippines. So don't miss out and order your copies today. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's start with, what does Bulan really mean? But wait, before I forget, just a reminder that in this video, I'll be sharing what I know based on my perspectives and knowledge as a Filipino historian and my upbringing as a datu and a culture bearer. So if there's anything that I missed or anything that you want to add from your own cultures and your own roots in the Philippines or anywhere else in Southeast Asia, please let us know in the comments below. Okay, so what does Bulan really mean? So in the many languages of the Philippines, like in Binisaya, Bicolano, Kapampangan, Bahasa Sug or Tausug, Ilocano, and many others, and actually even in the many languages of Indonesia and Malaysia, the word Bulan means the moon. It is also used to refer to the months. So for those who are unfamiliar, all of these languages, like literally the hundreds of languages across Southeast Asia, from Taiwan to the Philippines, from Madagascar in Africa to the many islands of the Pacific, from New Zealand to Hawaii and Easter Island, they all belong to the Austronesian family, hence why there's a lot of similarities. And in this music video, Bulan refers to the primordial moon god embodied by the moon itself in the diverse mythologies of Ibalon, aka Precolonial Bicol, and in the Visayas of Central Philippines. Actually, in some parts of the Visayas, the moon god is also referred to as Libulan. So yeah, in this music video, we see Philip play the character of the moon god Bulan, and I believe that this was inspired by his own roots. So Philip, aka Ken of SB19, is from Cagayan de Oro. Now, while the city of Cagayan de Oro is located in northern Mindanao facing the Visayas, the modern-day city itself is predominantly Visayan-speaking, specifically Cebuano-speaking. And now while his song Bulan is mostly in Tagalog, you can actually hear him saying a line in Cebuano or singing a line in Cebuano. And if you want to hear him sing and rap in Binisaya or Cebuano, check out his first single, Palayo. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's now take a look at the overall visuals of this music video. Like, what caught my attention and what for me are the deeper meanings, the deeper significance of these visual elements and even the music itself sprinkled throughout the video. In other words, what did I see as a Pinoy historian and a culture bearer beyond what we see on the surface? What are the deeper significance of all of these things? What do they really mean? So the first thing that caught my eye was the color red and the gold accessories. So pula or puwa in Binisaya, aka red, has a lot of significance in the Visayan culture, especially in warfare. For example, pre-colonial Visayans would showcase their valor and the fact that they had already killed an enemy by wearing a red bahag or loincloth, along with a red turban known as magalong. So overall, in the pre-colonial Visayan societies, red is associated with bravery and sacrifice. In fact, red is also the color representing the warriors, along with the nobility, aka Tumao, and those with royal blood, aka the Katatuan. Now, red is also culturally significant across the diverse indigenous cultures of the Philippines, hence why we see a lot of red in many of our indigenous cultures and traditional clothing. I mean, even in our pre-colonial flags, like those of the Maguindanawans and the Kapampangans, they're usually a combination of red, yellow, and green. Now in Kapampangan, red is also known as kundiman, and yes, the original pre-colonial meaning of kundiman referred to the color red or crimson red in the Kapampangan culture, not the Tagalog love songs that many are more familiar with today, but more on that in a future video. But anyways, red in Kapampangan mythology represents the alti or the lightning, aka the blazing red dragon who resides within the eyes of the sun god Apong Sinukwan. And in the Pandi, aka the indigenous Kapampangan flag, red also represents the fertile land of Upper Pampanga where I was born. Now in Kapampangan culture, just like in the Visayas, red or kundiman has long been traditionally associated with courage, the color of valor, empowerment, and of revolution. This is also why red was the chosen color of the revolutionary movement known as the Katipunan. And if we dig deeper, its association with Apong Sinukwan is also part of the reason why we have the iconic sun in our flags. So yes, red has a lot of meaning in the Philippines. So comment below and share what the color red means in your culture. And speaking of the color red, I noticed that the thematic colors of this music video are red, black, and white. Now these are some of the most common traditional colors of the various indigenous weaving traditions of the Philippines, particularly in Mindanao, where Philip is from. Now a great example of this would be the tinalak of the indigenous Tiboli people of South Cotabato. So now let us talk about the gold accessories he was wearing. Unknown to many, our ancestors were actually among the best goldsmiths in world history. Gold was both a measure of wealth and perhaps more importantly, it was an expression of our ancestors' deep spirituality. In fact, practically everyone was wearing gold, from the slaves to the kings and even the dead. And in the pre-colonial kingdom of Luzon or Luzon in Kapampangan culture, gold represented purity and nobility. And this is why in the pre-colonial traditions of the Kapampangans and the Maguindanawans, just like in the present-day Sultanate of Brunei and other Southeast Asian kingdoms, gold or yellow was a color that was traditionally exclusive to those with royal blood. Now historically speaking, the first known mention of gold in any surviving written records of the Philippines can be found on the Laguna copperplate inscription that was written 1,122 years ago. Now this document, written on a small piece of metal, provides us with insights into the complexity of our ancient society, from debt, gold, and slavery to our ancestors' legal systems, social class, and social mobility. It also gives us a peek into our ancestors' sophisticated knowledge of the ancient sciences, metallurgy, mathematics, astronomy, and more. In fact, the Laguna copperplate debunks many misconceptions and miseducation about pre-colonial Philippines. It reminds us that our ancestors were already civilized for at least over 1,000 years, if not more. A reminder that our archipelago was never isolated from the rest of Southeast Asia and other great civilizations before the so-called European discovery in 1521. And speaking of 1521, on March 29, 1521, Magellan and his crew were mind-blown by the amount and the magnificence of the gold our ancestors had when they met Raja Siagu, the ruler of Butuan and Caraga. In fact, the ancient kingdom of Butuan was one of the oldest and wealthiest known pre-colonial kingdoms in what is now the Philippines. Unknown to many, most of the golden artifacts we see in the museums that survived from our archipelago were actually found in Butuan and the surrounding Caraga region. So fun fact, Raja Siagu was also the brother of Raja Colambu of Mazawa, and the two of them were also the cousins of Raja Humabon, the paramount ruler of Cebu and the surrounding islands. And it is also believed that Raja Humabon was also the brother-in-law of Datu Lapu-Lapu of Mactan. In short, all of them were related to one another. So another thing that immediately caught my attention was how sexually or gender ambiguous Philip was in his appearance. Now I'm not sure if this was intentional, but for those who may not know, for the most part, our pre-colonial ancestors saw gender and sexuality as fluid. It was something that they were empowered to own and embrace without prejudice. For example, in the pre-colonial indigenous Kapampangan culture, our ancestors actually celebrated the fluidity of gender and sexuality. And they saw this in almost all aspects of life or the world around us. So from the animals and humans to the diwatas, the gods and goddesses of our ancestors, their genders and sexualities were always understood as fluid before colonialism. Now this is not to say that there were no straight people back in the day or that there were no gendered roles back then, but these roles and these perceptions of gender and sexuality were not rigid like it is today. Our ancestors understood queerness as something that must be celebrated and appreciated, not just accepted or tolerated. They saw this as perfectly normal. In fact, in pre-colonial Kapampangan society, it was considered a blessing to have a child who we in the modern day would identify as queer. And another thing that caught my eye right away was the dance circle they performed in the video. It reminds me of a traditional children's game in the Philippines known as Bulan Bulan or Buwan Buwan, where players reenact the lunar eclipse. They do this by drawing a circle on the ground to represent the moon while protecting it from the other player, aka the taya or it in Tagalog, who represents the Bakunawa. Now this taya playing the Bakunawa cannot enter the circle, but they may switch places with another player by tagging them. Okay, so I hope that made sense, but if you're still confused how it works, you can search it up on YouTube. And also, the loud background music in FELIP's Bulan music video or in the song itself reminds me of the loud noises, the banging of the pots, the pans, the gongs, and the barking of the dogs and the screaming and the yelling of the people to scare the Bakunawa away. Because traditionally in the many cultures of the Philippines, making these noises were done to prevent the eclipse. These were all done to scare dragons like the Bakunawa, the Lawu, the Minokawa, or other dragons away, and thus saving the sun or the moon from being swallowed. So this is the same amongst the Kapampangans, the Tagalogs, the Visayans, the Bicolanos, the Bagobos, and many more. And now, the exciting part! Let us now dig deeper into the mythologies of Bulan, Haliya, and the Bakunawa. So first, let us acknowledge that the country we now call the Philippines is a beautiful country with diverse people, diverse but interwoven, colorful cultures, and rich mythologies. Now I say this because a lot of people today tend to lump all of the different mythologies of the Philippines into one. But it is important for us to recognize their roots and their diversity. For example, the mythology of Bulan, Haliya, and the Bakunawa, as shown in this music video, was inspired and rooted in the mythologies of the Bicolano people. So according to the pre-colonial mythologies of Ibalon, or what is now Bicol, Haliya was the name of the beautiful goddess of the moon, who hides her beauty by wearing a golden mask. Now the reason why she hides her beauty behind a golden mask was because of her arch-enemy, the Bakunawa, the gigantic moon-eating dragon from the mythologies of the Visayans and Bicolanos. So in Bicol, Bakunawa was also believed to be the deity of the underworld, while on the other hand, Haliya was believed to be the benevolent patron goddess and protector of women. In fact, there was an entire pre-colonial religious group devoted to Haliya, because for the women of Ibalon, Haliya was their protector from the evils of the Bakunawa. Because Haliya was also the warrior goddess who guards her brother Bulan, the last moon, from being devoured by the Bakunawa. Now again, as mentioned earlier, Bulan was the primordial moon god, the embodiment of the moon itself in the diverse mythologies of Ibalon and the Visayas. Today, Bakunawa is perhaps the most famous dragon from the Philippines, but Bakunawa was not alone. There are dozens more dragons from the different indigenous mythologies of the Philippines. Many of them were also believed to be the cause of the eclipse by swallowing the sun or the moon, just like the Bakunawa. So in Kapampangan mythology, we have Lawu, the dragon who swallows Aldo or the sun, aka Apong Sinokwan, or the moon, Bulan, aka Apong Mayari. And in Mindanao, they have the Minokawa from the indigenous Bagobo people. Minokawa is another giant dragon who swallows the sun and the moon. And also in Mindanao, we have Arimaunga, a gigantic but playful lion-like dragon of the Maranao people. A dragon who would accidentally swallow the sun and the moon while playing. And another unique one was a gigantic crab known as Tambanacano from the indigenous Mandaya people also of Mindanao. So the eclipse in the Mandaya mythology is believed to be caused by Tambanacano trying to swallow one of its own parents, the sun or the moon. Now again, these are just a few examples from the diverse mythologies of our ancestors, so check out the links below to learn more. Now speaking of diverse Philippine mythologies, Bulan and Haliya are not the only moon deities of our ancestors. So here's a few examples of other pre-colonial moon deities in the Philippines. In Ilocos, we have Bulan, the god of peace. In Pangasinan, we have the mischievous god of the moon, also named Bulan. In Ifugao, we have the blood-drinking Bulan, the god of war, moon and justice. In the Visayan creation mythology, we have the moon deity Libulan, who was the son of Lidagat, the sea, and Lihangin, the wind. Libulan was also the grandson of Kaptan, the primordial Visayan god of the skies, and his once rival turned lover, Magwayan, the primordial Visayan goddess of the ocean and the underworld. And as mentioned earlier, in Kapampangan, we have Apong Mayari of Mount Pinatubo, who is also known as Bulan, the Diwata or the god of the moon and the ruler of the 8 sacred rivers. Now, Apong Mayari was blinded after a fierce battle with his or her twin Apong Sinukwan over who would be the paramount deity or the king of the gods. Now, both of them are the children of Batala, the Kapampangan primordial god of the skies, who was also known as the creator. And actually, the Kapampangan Apong Mayari was also the same exact one as the moon deity Apon na Mayari in the indigenous Aita mythology of Central Luzon. But unlike the Kapampangans, the indigenous Aitas believed that it was Apon na Mayari who won the fierce battle against Apong Sinukwan, and thus it was him, the moon, who emerged and ascended to become the paramount deity. Interestingly, in Kapampangan, Apon na Mayari also means the god who makes things possible. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking of the goddess Mayari. So who exactly was Mayari? So in recent years, many have been familiar with the one-eyed moon goddess named Mayari. But the thing is, the mythology about Mayari that many today associate with Tagalog culture was actually more of a modern adaptation borrowed from the pre-colonial mythologies of the Kapampangans and the Aitas. If we actually look at the records and dig deeper in our oral traditions, the original Tagalog moon goddess was known as Kulalaying, not Mayari, but Kulalaying. So while many today identify the Tagalog moon deity as the one-eyed goddess Mayari, this can only be traced back to the mid-1900s. So in short, the goddess Mayari that we know today is actually none other than the pre-colonial god known as Apong Malyari in Kapampangan or Apong na Malyari to the Aitas. Okay, so I know a lot of you are probably confused because I keep switching between the gender pronouns while referring to the same deity, and here's why. Like I mentioned earlier, our ancestors saw the fluidity in gender. In fact, pronouns in our indigenous languages are gender neutral. And if we study the Diwatas or the deities, aka the gods and goddesses of our ancestors, their genders and sexualities overall were understood as fluid. So if you want to learn more about gender and sexuality in pre-colonial Philippines, check out my video from last year. And again, there is a lot of different variations of our mythology surrounding the moon, like the ones about the Bakunawa, Haliya, and Bulan. So to learn more, stay tuned for my live stream with the author and the Visayan Tagalog Culture Bearer, Ate Ligaya Caballes, aka the Pinay Writer. Now, before I continue, I just want to acknowledge that I am not ethnically Bicolano, but I do have mad respect for the Bicolano culture, language, and heritage. And I also do have family and friends in Bicol, particularly in Albay, and I can also speak a little Bicolano. So to our Bicolano family, friends, and viewers, if there's anything that I missed, or anything that I got wrong or mispronounced, or anything that you want to add, let us know in the comments down below. Like what I always say on my channel, let us all learn from one another. But anyways, back to our topic, back to Bulan. So what is the overall message of Bulan, of this music video? What is the point of all of these? And what is so exciting about Bulan, P-pop, and everything in between? So in the music video, we see and hear Philip proclaim to the world that he is Bulan. In fact, we see him unmask himself while uttering the words, "Pagpatak ng dilim, ako ang bulan sa silanganan." Or in English, "As the darkness fall, I am Bulan, the moon god in the east." And this brings us to the message, the deeper message of the song rooted in the mythology of Bulan, Haliya, and the Bakunawa. This whole song is a powerful message of empowerment and knowing your worth, a message of resistance and survival, a reminder to hold your ground no matter what the enemies may throw your way, a reminder to get back up after falling down, to keep pursuing your dreams no matter how others may try to tear you down, to keep ascending no matter how hard they try to pull you down, to keep growing and blooming no matter how deep they try to bury you. But more importantly, this is also a message of empowerment, of knowing your worth, through embracing who you are, through embracing your roots, your culture, and your identity. And for me, the most exciting part is the fact that our traditions and culture are put in the spotlight, in front and center of the mainstream pop culture. So I really, sincerely, genuinely congratulate Philip, aka Ken of SB19, for this beautiful music video and truly empowering song. Maraming salamat, daghang salamat, mabuhay ka. I love how our young artists today are embracing and incorporating elements of our culture into their music, into their art, into their masterpiece. I love how they are digging deeper into our roots and identities as a source of inspiration, and thus promoting our deeper and often forgotten culture to the younger generation and to the rest of the world. And of course, Philip is not the only one, so shout out to the other artists doing this as well, especially to Salámat and SB19 for leveling up pop culture in the Philippines while at the same time staying rooted in our culture and traditions. Again, maraming salamat, dakala salamat, mabuhay kayo, luwid kayo. It is really nice to see our culture be put in the spotlight, not just locally but internationally. Because the sad reality is that many of our people are not familiar with our own mythologies. Sadly, to this day, many Filipinos are more familiar with Western culture and mythologies. And this has a lot to do with the colonial miseducation of the Filipinos, or how colonialism and imperialism weaponized our own culture, traditions, mythologies, and education against our own people, and how this colonial and imperialist policies directly led to the crisis of education in the Philippines today, and why many Filipinos today do not have a deeper understanding and a genuine appreciation of our own roots. Now this is exactly why I love making videos like this even when I'm sick, so that we can all have another chance at learning about our past and reconnecting with our roots to get to know our people better. We just need to dig deeper and learn to genuinely appreciate our own diverse but interwoven roots. And as I've mentioned many times before, learning about our histories, knowing our roots, celebrating our heritage is not about this nostalgic longing for the glitz and the glamour of the past. Instead, it means staying rooted in our people's histories while facing the realities of today. Just like what we see in FELIP Bulan and what I tell my own students, knowing our roots means being armed and empowered by the wisdoms of our ancestors as we face our own present-day struggles for genuine peace, prosperity, freedom, and justice in our communities. And that is it for me today. So let me know what you think about today's topic in the comments down below. Let me know, how do you celebrate your own culture? How do you show appreciation and embrace your culture, your roots, and your heritage? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video or learn a thing or two, don't forget to like, share this video, comment down below, and please subscribe. But of course, before we go, today's shoutout goes to all the P-pop fans all over the world, all around the world. Lalo na to all the 18s out there, especially to Kashmir, Cheska Sensei, Rax L, Tita Bebe, Ria Freya, and Mom to T-Rax. Ay, Mama to T-Rax pala. Special shoutout din to my good friends kina Ate Pichi Galias of Legazpi Albay, and to Dex Baldon, a young culture bearer, Bicolano culture bearer, also from Legazpi Albay. Dios mabalos to Dex and Ate Pichi. And of course, special thanks and special shoutout to my patron Monch Mercader. This video will not be possible without the love and the support of all my patrons through the years. Kaya naman maraming salamat po. Daghang salamat. Magsukultuod kay mo agyamanak dakalpong salamat, or in Bicolano, Dios mabalos. See you next time, or in Tagalog kita kits and in Kapampangan, Bingkitiks, and in Bisaya, kita ay ta.